This is Whether or Not.
Welcome back. We are back.
We are back.
Yeah.
Happy New Year, whether or not, of course. And we're back with some busy weather.
Yeah, it's been a long time since we've talked about winter weather around here. That is something we're obviously going to be focusing on, and winter weather, honestly, across most of the Deep South. One of the bigger winter storms we've seen potentially in about 2 years across much of the Deep South.
And certainly a very favorable pattern we had last weekend system moving through, especially across portions of the Ohio Valley. And why not? Let's talk about the next system. Let's go ahead and talk about those three things you need to know with that first alert. And obviously the big story is that Arctic air we gave the first alert 2 weeks ago, still lingering around and setting the scene.
Yeah, it is. And that is going to lead to a deep south winter storm. A lot of places similar to us, not used to dealing with winter weather, going to be potentially dealing with a lot of winter weather as we head through Thursday and into Friday and early Saturday. And that does include us here with that local risk, at least, for some ice, some freezing rain and sleet inland. But before that, boy, do we have some cold.
Yeah, cold coming in. And fun fact, for the first time, a cold weather advisory, that new winter product now out for extreme cold in our area. And it's not because of the temperatures, it's because of the wind, as a reinforcing cold shot of air makes it feel brutal tomorrow morning.
Yeah, the cold weather advisory replaced what used to be a wind chill advisory. Now it's kind of lumped in together, whether it's the actual temperature or the feels like temperature. If it's between 10 or 15 degrees here, you're now going to get that cold weather advisory. If it's below 10 degrees, you'll get a cold weather warning. So yeah, cold weather advisory in place for a couple hours Thursday morning. 10 to 15 degree wind chills.
Yeah, going to be a chill and a shock to the system. Temperature-wise, we're going to be about the same as what we were this morning. Just know that wind will make it feel worse. Then, of course, that sets the scene. Cold air in play will go throughout your Thursday. Highs in the upper 30s. A cold day, in fact, the coldest of the week. And then all eyes on that system. And you'll notice they're highlighting Friday red for inland areas for the increasing ice threat.
Yeah, first alert weather day now basically for the I-95 corridor across the PD for the increasing chance of freezing rain and sleet as we head into the afternoon. And that's all part of this big winter storm that's going to be working its way through the Deep South.
Yeah, certainly a big picture and something we're going to have to keep an eye on. And this is what we're going to dedicate this whole episode to, is taking you through how kind of all this plays out. And remember, some of this will change. So make sure you're staying updated with this on social media as well. So let's dive into it. Let's take you coast to coast, especially as we look ahead and start to see those watches and warnings coming into play.
Yeah, look at that. Not very often you see Dallas under a winter storm warning, as well as Hot Springs, Arkansas, Little Rock. Those are those pink areas. Winter storm watches now from Memphis to Tupelo, Huntsville, Birmingham, Atlanta, and now extending into the upstate of South Carolina and into extreme western North Carolina, all the way up into Kentucky. And we'll likely see these winter storm watches expanded even further east into parts of the Carolinas as we head through late today and into early tomorrow. And it's all because of this big mess. We're going to walk you through it starting off 7 a.m. tomorrow morning. Yeah, it's clear and cold all across the Deep South, but that storm just getting started across the Lone Star State. Notice early tomorrow morning, Wichita Falls, Abilene, into Dallas. Starting to see some snow and some sleet and freezing rain picking up through that morning commute.
Yeah, the developing low pressure in the Gulf of Mexico begins to work its way in, and it'll get going there in the Gulf of Mexico. And notice now as we go into Thursday afternoon, snow begins to really pick up as you work your way even into portions of Arkansas. This will transpire as we go into Thursday evening as well. And as we move into time here, Thursday evening and into your Friday, you'll notice two things. One, a lot more heavier rain there situated where that low pressure really starts to develop, but also two, consistent snow bands to the north of that low pressure along with that wintry mess. That wintry mess is going to be what eventually works its way across the Deep South and brings in that freezing rain as we go into the forecast there eventually for the Carolinas.
You know where I'd hate to be a forecaster? Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, look at that.
Look at that line between potentially heavy snow and potentially heavy freezing rain and sleet. It is right on top of the city, so it's going to be a tough go of it there. Let's take you into Friday morning. How about freezing rain and sleet potentially as far south as Montgomery, Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama, up into Huntsville, likely starting off with snow early on Friday morning. Snow for places like Tupelo into Memphis, coming into Nashville and Chattanooga. And even as we head through the mid to late morning hours on Friday, that moves into Atlanta And we're going to stop this here at 5 o'clock on Friday, and you can notice that arm of wintry weather trying to sneak its way into the central and western parts of the Carolinas. We'll break down our risk coming up here in just a bit. Let's talk about those accumulation potentials there across Texas, and it is just a mess, especially where you see the pink.
Yeah, that pink is the ice that is lining up too that you'll notice. But notice the heavy bands of snow, 7 to 10 inches. I saw some forecasts there coming out for portions of Oklahoma and Texas where they're talking double-digit snowfall, maybe even more than that. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that. But right where you get that transition period, typically with these systems from that wintry mix to the heavier rain, heavier snow, I should say. Yeah, that's where you start to see that snowfall really add up, and we're going to be looking at some significant totals into areas that haven't seen snow in a couple of years.
Yeah, if I were to pick a jackpot right now, I'm going to say Little Rock to the northern suburbs of Dallas.
I like Hot
Probably,
Springs. So.
Yeah, probably the bullseye for heavy snow. But as you were mentioning, it's right along that dividing line between snow and freezing rain and sleet, where you can oftentimes pick up some of the heaviest totals. So that is certainly going to be the case. And yeah, what a mess in Dallas with the snow and ice through the day tomorrow. Temperatures may creep above that freezing mark, but then back down below it Thursday night. And they're a lot like us around here. There's not a lot of snow removal equipment. There's not a lot of salt trucks. So snow and ice of any amount there in Dallas can cause some big issues. And they're probably going to have some big issues. And I believe, don't they have a big game coming up there Saturday?
Yeah.
Sugar Bowl.
They got a big game. Yeah, the Sugar Bowl's coming up there. So you're certainly going to be some travel impacts and issues for sure. But it's also one of those areas that they remember the last time it snowed. They remember the last time it was a big one. In fact, let's take you back to 2021. You might remember this historic winter storm, the Great Texas Freeze. Yeah, I remember this. Remember the ice that was lining up?
Yeah, incredible ice and snow. And this time, back in 2021, it was all the way down to Houston, dealing with freezing rain and sleet and snow. Houston, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, all just locked in. And of course, the big issue that came from that was the failure of the power grid.
The power grid.
Could not handle such a prolonged stretch of bitter cold weather. The power outages, the frozen pipes, it was all just a huge mess. Not looking at anything of that magnitude, as it's sort of a smaller area impacted by this winter storm, and not quite as cold as it was. There were single digits and even below zero there in Texas back in 2021.
And even in comparison to last weekend's winter storm, we are going to warm up gradually as we go through. So hopefully the improvements are a little bit short-lived. I know they're still dealing with snow problems up in the Ohio Valley, but yeah, there's going to be some snow and ice issues for sure across portions of Texas.
All right, let's take you a little bit further east with this deep south winter storm. This time we'll take you into the heart of the deep south, Mississippi, Alabama, into Georgia. And again, the accumulation map, it's really messy, and there's still a lot of room for adjustments here, especially for places like Atlanta and Birmingham and Tupelo, all going to be on that dividing line. If it's more snow, you get 3, 4, 5 inches. If it's more freezing rain and sleet, well, then you could potentially be talking about power issues. And again, it's all going to come down to really, really small scale details in the atmosphere that make forecasting winter weather down here so hard.
And it's a matter of miles. It has been one of those, and it's still this way, going back to the north, going back to the south. I have friends in Nashville that were talking about massive ice accumulations, and now they're talking potentially 9 inches of snow. Of course, there's still some time to play, but you'll notice some heavy snow working right there through the midsection of Tennessee and even into southeastern Kentucky.
Yes, let's take you into Atlanta. It's quiet and cold. Maybe have some business travel there into tomorrow. Gonna be fine, but as we head into Thursday night, and unfortunately, probably right around or maybe just after the Friday morning commute in Atlanta is when the snow and the sleet arrives there. Probably starts as snow. Most likely Atlanta transitions over to sleet and maybe even freezing rain heading into Friday afternoon.
Yeah, Atlanta's one of those weird spots too. Cold air usually has to be in play, whether that's cold air damming or an Arctic front that moved through. Let's take it to 2014 in Atlanta, because once again, if you remember this was when the Snowmageddon hit Georgia there, and this was enough to turn interstates basically into parking lots. Cars were stuck there for days, and the temperatures were certainly cold enough to where it trapped drivers for a couple of days, and you could see just a sheet of ice and not much snow, 1 to 2 inches. But for that area, that's enough.
What happened with Snowmageddon? I remember that because I was here working, and Snowmageddon that started in Atlanta also brought winter weather here. It started snowing in the middle of the day. And what happens in Atlanta when it starts snowing in the middle of the day? Everybody leaves work in a hurry, and they all got on the roads, and all of that snow turned into a sheet of ice, and it was absolute gridlock there in Atlanta, and that's why it's named Snowmageddon. Snowmageddon. All right, let's take you into the Carolinas now, because of course this is the primary focus for us. In the overall most likely scenario now, featuring primarily snow in the western and northern parts of North Carolina. So Asheville, Hickory, Greensboro, Winston-Salem, up into Boone and across the border into Virginia, primarily snow, but notice that big broad area of pink there, kind of riding right along the I-85 corridor. Greenville, Charlotte, up through Burlington and into Raleigh. That's going to be the dividing line, whether it's more snow, whether it's more sleet, whether it's more freezing rain, and then that ice potential all the way down into parts of the PD. But let's talk about Charlotte. I know a lot of you folks have some big interest there in Charlotte. It's cold tomorrow, and then Friday's a nasty day.
And listen, you are right on that dividing line. If you can get a little bit more south here with that trend, you could be picking up on some heavy snow. Right now, we'll call it snow and ice late. I think a wintry mix. Notice temperatures in the 20s there as we go into Friday night and into Saturday. So we're certainly going to have travel issues. And we've been saying it too, especially this morning on our show. If you can just look to the north, if you have plans this weekend, be sure you stay aware with the forecast, because things are going to go downhill quick as you move into North Carolina Friday night.
Yeah, and the issue I think for Charlotte also is going to be the timing. Likely going to start seeing snow arriving there in the Charlotte metro area probably about the time the Friday evening commute is getting underway. And this isn't sort of like some of our previous snows where, 2 or 3 days before it's 60 and 70 degrees. The ground is warm. Things have a hard time sticking. It's been cold all week. The ground is cold, road temperatures are cold, so an hour of light snow is going to cause some issues on the roads, especially those untreated ones, before things gradually start to improve by late Saturday into Sunday as temperatures climb back into the 40s. Let's bring it back here at home, and the riskiest part of our forecast is going to be there across the PD. We're sort of on the edge of this winter storm, deciding where that dividing line is going to be between just a plain cold, miserable rain and temperatures potentially close enough to the freezing mark to give us that period of freezing rain. So what we've done, well, we're going with the first alert weather day now for late Friday afternoon into early Saturday morning. That includes Florence, Darlington, Dillon, Marion, Marlborough, Scotland, and Robeson counties.
And I think we need to be very transparent here. We cannot guarantee that you're going to be looking at a glaze of ice all the way down in southern Marion County, but there has been some trends now a little bit to the south, northern Marion County, the I-95 corridor through Dillon, even up into Lumberton. That area looks like it's a little bit more confidence increasing that will at least have a couple of hours of freezing rain, even if a cold rain were to develop later and then kind of improve conditions overnight. So going to have to keep an eye on that as we go into your forecast, and we'll take you through this as we go into future radar, because I think another big key, and we were talking about this between you and I, Jamie, the clouds moving in earlier in the day could keep us a little bit colder than what some of the models think.
Yeah, so here's kind of a breakdown of what we're looking at here. And this is our in-house graph model. It's been a little aggressive. It's been a little colder than some of our more traditional models, but it's also a really good model. It had some big success up in northern North Carolina over the weekend with winter weather there. So we're giving it some credit here. We'll stop the clock at 4 o'clock Friday afternoon, and notice there's a good bit of pink, even kind of far south. I think what that's picking up on is a cold and dry atmosphere that would support primarily some sleet on the leading edge of that, especially Williamsburg County, Florence County, potentially even interior Horry County gets into some sleet for a brief period, and even a brief period of some light snow I think will be possible north and west of I-95 as we get towards that Friday evening commute.
Yeah, as we go into the Friday evening commute and we continue that into the middle of the evening, you'll notice what is expected to happen. I want to make sure that we say that too with the trends. Warmer air from that low pressure system will begin to nudge in, so it will be a cold rain, but it will be warm enough to keep it just plain rain for Grand Strand and even for Georgetown and Horry County. But as you work your way right into the heart of where we're declaring that first alert weather day, the sleet potential still remains, but also the freezing rain potential. Surface temperatures are going to be cold enough to where even if rain were to fall, it could cause some slick spots. And that's what we're going to have to keep an eye on as it goes into the evening. Notice we'll start to see that rain and freezing rain sleet line start to work its way to the north. But if you get a couple of hours of freezing rain or even sleet, we can expect some slick spots as we go into the forecast there overnight Saturday, which brings up this fantastic graphic. I love it every time we show it.
I do too. The people get confused.
Yeah.
Much like a watch and a warning, the difference between sleet and freezing rain can also be a little bit confusing for a lot of folks. So we're breaking it down in something that we understand. Food.
Donuts. So think of my favorite, obviously the glazed donut. This is our freezing rain representation, a glazed thin sheet, sometimes hard to see. That's what could cause issues. And then of course we go into sleet. You can not only hear it, but you could see it a little bit more defined than what that freezing rain is. The two combined could also create some big problems.
Yeah, both cause issues on the roads, freezing
Yes.
rain and sleet. Freezing rain causes the power outages, sleet does not. Sleet doesn't stick on trees or anything, it's just on the ground, but that glaze of ice, if you're not a visual person, if you like to hear it, you can also remember it like this. Freezing rain clings, sleet pings.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, freezing rain clings to everything, sleet pings as it's falling. I love to hear sleet
I
falling.
certainly think we will be able to hear some in our area. Many of you have asked, and why not? Let's do it. The days since the last snow, freezing rain. Yeah, 1,075 days since that last snow. I remember flakes flying in the area. And of course, freezing rain, 1,082 days since the last freezing rain event in our area. I think that comes to an end for some spots for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Here at the beach, not so much, especially freezing rain. There's maybe a tiny outside chance of like 3 flakes, but mainly sleet. So I don't think we're going to be a
couple sleet drops.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be resetting that clock, but still certainly something we'll be watching. And obviously we'll be fine tuning this First Alert weather app, you name it. We're going to have it all covered as we head through these next 48 hours.
Yeah, certainly a lot to talk about. We'll have another episode of that, but let's take you to our temperature extremes because I still want to talk about some of the other things that are happening, especially across the United States. Let's talk about the warmth. We certainly don't have it, but 83 degrees there in Hollywood, Florida. Meanwhile, you go over there to Forest Center, Minnesota, 16 below zero. For perspective, that makes our 40s and 30s feel a lot better as that cold Arctic air. It was even in the negatives as you go up into Kentucky with the snowpack on the ground. So certainly below zero happening for sure.
Which leads us to some interesting stats from yesterday. Louisville yesterday was in the teens.
Yeah.
Louisville, Kentucky in the teens. Anchorage, Alaska was actually in the 40s.
It's funny because Mom called me and I told her, I was like, it's, in the 40s here, sun is shining, roads are clear, but they've been locked in and it sounds like schools are going to be canceled all week there with that same system bringing snow to them. How about Kansas City? The wind chills dipped below zero. And then Charleston, West Virginia was still getting snow on Tuesday. And in the Appalachian Mountains, some areas could get temperatures as cold as -20. Keep in mind, snowpack attributing to that as well, but that wind ramping up with that second surge tonight going to make it brutal in the mountains. I don't care if it's the mountains or not, -20 wind chill is cold.
Yeah, it is definitely cold. Let's do a complete 180 though now and take you to the West Coast. You have obviously heard by now the incredible eruption of wildfires there across Southern California, all thanks to the Santa Ana winds and what has so far been a very dry winter there across the West Coast. Notice through the day Thursday, there is nothing going on there across Southern California, Los Angeles, the Palisades fire, Malibu. It is bone dry and it is windy. We've seen wind gusts down there in some of those valleys up to 70 and 80 miles per hour. Plenty cold up in the Rockies, but it is warm and it is dry there in Southern California, and that's where we want to take you now with just some remarkable video that's been coming out of this area of how fast those fires were spreading thanks to those incredibly strong Santa Ana winds.
Yeah, the Santa Ana winds continue, and once again, 2,900 acres here. The fires threaten 13,000 structures, and this is in the Palisades, right there located near Malibu, just to the east of that. And hundreds of firefighters, even still, they've been battling the blaze on foot, the hillsides, the video that's coming out of there, people being evacuated from their home, pets being rescued, just some emotional scenes coming out there from Los Angeles County in California. And unfortunately, a lot of this still uncontained and the wind's still gusty, but there is going to be a small window of opportunity for some of the wind to die down. And I want to take you to our wind forecast here. And as we do so, you'll notice where the fires are located. We've highlighted the two main ones there, basically just north of Malibu. We'll start this tonight. The worst of the wind begins to push its way off to the east briefly. And if we're going to start to see some, once again, changes, I think it's going to come later into the week as we head into Friday. In fact, we'll advance this through, and you'll notice that wind begins to die down just a little bit. And as we see so, you'll notice we're looking at, once again, a little bit of a break. And I think that break could be enough not to end this completely, Jamie, but to at least help those firefighters. If you've ever seen wildfires in person, you get a little bit of wind and it's hard, but you get the wind they're getting out there. It's impossible.
Yeah, for sure. And not only a lessening of the wind speeds, but also on that graphic, a change in the wind direction. That west wind out there coming off the mountains, it just dries everything out and it howls. You get that wind coming off the Pacific Ocean, which is chilly, brings in some higher humidity, and that could at least kind of ease up on the fire potential and just how rapidly those spread. But I think that's going to be a big story we're probably watching all the way through the weekend there, with really no significant rain, just a subtle improvement in the wind heading into the weekend.
Yeah, certainly something we'll watch. We'll also keep you posted on the updates for this snow system working its way through. Snow, ice, freezing rain, sleet. Be sure to join us tomorrow for whether or not. We'll break it down again and hopefully show you some snow video from some of the country.
Yeah, we'll see you back here Thursday.